Multiple sources tell CNN Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth revealed attack plans for airstrikes on Houthi rebels in Yemen in another signal chat. This one included his wife, brother, and personal attorney. Now, this second signal chat is in addition to the one Hegseth used to communicate about military plans with cabinet officials last month that is now under investigation by the Defense Department's acting inspector general. I want to go straight to CNN's Kevin Liptak, who is at the White House for more on this. Kevin, what are we learning about this?
Yeah, and if this all sounds sort of reminiscent of that scandal that engulfed the administration about a month ago, it should, because the Secretary of Defense, we are now learning, shared very similar details about the U.S. attack plans on the Houthi rebels in Yemen on a second signal group. And we understand that this included things like takeoff times for some of those fighter jets as they were preparing to strike those targets in Yemen. The big difference here is who comprised each of these signal groups, because remember that first time around, that group was created by the National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. It was intended to coordinate this attack with members of the cabinet officials who were in top national security positions in the administration, and he inadvertently included the journalist Jeffrey Goldberg. This new signal group that we are just learning about this evening included some members of Pete Hegseth's inner circle who are, it's not clear what reason they would have to have this information about the strikes that the U.S. was planning to carry out. It included his brother and his personal attorney. They both work at the Pentagon. It's not clear whether they have security clearances. It also included his wife, Jennifer, who has accompanied him previously in meetings with other foreign officials, which has raised some eyebrows among certain officials at the Pentagon. Now, as you mentioned, that original signal sort of snafu is now being investigated by the Inspector General at the Pentagon. It's not clear whether this latest revelation will be included in the review. The Pentagon officially has not commented on these latest revelations, which I should note were first reported by the New York Times. But this does punctuate a period of chaos inside the Pentagon and inside the inner circle of Pete Hegseth. You'll remember just last week, senior officials who were in sort of his front office at the Pentagon were fired essentially for what officials described as a leak investigation. And this is all sort of drawing questions, including from some loyalists, some allies of Pete Hegseth, at how this chaos has been allowed to perpetuate. We just heard from John Ulyat, who until recently was Pete Hegseth's press secretary at the Pentagon. He says that it's been a month of total chaos at the Pentagon, from leaks of sensitive operational plans to mass firings. The dysfunction is now a major distraction for the president, who deserves better from his senior leadership. Oya goes on to say even strong backers of the secretary, like me, must admit the last month has been a full-blown meltdown at the Pentagon, and it's becoming a real problem for the administration. Part of the problem, of course, is that this is not sort of a quiet period for national security. You have Pete Hegseth making sort of preparations on the president's command, these designs on the Panama Canal. He was just there visiting earlier this month. You also have this buildup of U.S. assets in the Middle East in preparation for a potential Israeli strike on Iran. You also have tensions in Asia. So this is a fraught period for the Pentagon to be undergoing, this period of chaos. And certainly, I think now you'll hear from officials who are questioning whether Pete Hegseth is sort of the man for the job at this very fraught moment. I should also note that when those original war plans, attack plans were shared in the signal group, the administration and the White House and President Trump denied that there was anything classified contained in that information. Of course, that drew a lot of skepticism from almost every national security analyst that we talked to, Jessica.
Yeah. All right, Kevin Liptak with the breaking news there at the White House. Thank you so much. And joining us now to talk more about this, CNN senior military analyst and retired U.S. Air Force Colonel Cedric Leighton. Also with us, former Pentagon Deputy Press Secretary Sabrina Singh. Sabrina, I want to start first with you. let's zoom out for a second. I want to get your thoughts just as you're hearing all of this information, this idea that there was a second Signal chat where he was sharing this information about these strikes with people like his wife, his brother, his personal attorney, who don't have security clearances. What are you thinking as someone who stood at that podium at the Pentagon and knows how this information is typically handled?
I mean, it's truly shocking. I think when I saw this reporting coming out from the New York Times at first, there was no question there were going to be more Signal threads. Who started them? This one in particular was started by Pete Hegseth. And for him to add, his wife, his brother, his personal attorney, people that don't need access or need to know about classified information about operations involving the Houthis in any way. I mean, this is something that we would never do under the previous administration. And on top of that, putting these classified details into a commercial texting app like Signal, again, that puts our fighter pilots at risk. That was something that, certainly concerned me deeply when these texts were first exposed just a month ago. It's that same concern. It's putting the operation, those fighter pilots who are in the air about to conduct this operation at risk with people that don't need to know this information.
And Cedric, I want to go off what Sabrina's saying there from the military perspective. Again, just the potential for danger for our men and women in uniform. What kind of potential for danger is there if this information were to get leaked or get into the wrong hands? Again, this is an encrypted app, but it is not a secure line. And in fact, his advisors had warned him that it wasn't a secure place to be sharing information like this.
Yeah, that's right, Jessica. And Sabrina's exactly right. First of all, we look at the fighter pilots and all of the effort that goes into planning air operations of this type. People don't realize, if you're not involved in air operations, a lot of people don't understand that these are very complex operations, and there's a lot that can go wrong as you plan them. And one of the key things is when you actually plan these operations and you have specific things like time over target, the type of ordnance that's going to be dropped, the type of targets that you're going after, the exact target that you're going after, all of those kinds of things are absolutely essential elements of information. And those essential elements of information are exactly what makes these kinds of texts classified. And no matter what they will spin at this Pentagon, this stuff is classified, no doubt about it. And Jessica, this is the kind of thing that gets people in trouble. When the first Signal chat scandal broke, we talked about the old World War II adage, loose lips sink ships. This is exactly the kind of thing that happens because Signal chats can be intercepted by sophisticated adversaries like the Russians, like the Chinese. It's difficult for them to do so, but they've proven that they can do it in Ukraine. And it's the kind of thing that we have to guard against. And, these types of Signal chats, even if they happen in the United States, in the DC area, you can bet that the Russians and the Chinese are working very hard to intercept them.
And we know that the Chinese government has been trying to hack into a number of elected officials' phones, including, all the way up to the vice president and others. Sabrina, I want to go to the statement that we obtained, that CNN obtained from John Oliot, who was most recently Hegseth's press secretary, again, a role you're quite familiar with. And our colleagues, Natasha Bertrand, Jake Tapper, Haley Thomas, and Zachary Cohen, write in this piece that he said in the statement, it's been a month of total chaos at the Pentagon, from leaks of sensitive operational plans to mass firings. The dysfunction is now a major distraction for the president, who deserves better from his senior leadership. For his former press secretary, again, just recently former, to be saying that and to be quoted saying that, what do you make of that?
I mean, I have to agree, he's not wrong. We're nearly 100 days into this presidency, and it does seem that America and our military is less safe. I mean, from the Signal threads that have been now exposed to what you're seeing, Secretary Hegseth say about our allies and partners, to turning our back on Ukraine, to being willing to engage and get closer with countries like Russia and kind of, succumb to what Putin wants. Yeah, these last few months have been absolute chaos. And I think it really shows the incompetence of what we have, in Secretary Hegseth sitting at the top. We don't have qualified leadership. And this was something that, we were sort of sounding the alarm bells on when he was confirmed. And so you obviously want the best, but, he's fired all of his senior, members around him. And so you're seeing the chaos kind of unfold, not just in the text threads, but being played out on the world stage. And that, of course, is so dangerous, not just in sending members to our allies, but really sending a message to our adversaries as well.